Hello and welcome to the AI Advantage, Tools, Techniques, and Truths. So let's go ahead and get started. If you want access to this presentation and any resources after the fact, you can go to the website, thebimsider.com, or take a picture of the QR code. I will show this again at the end of the presentation, so let's jump in. So a quick agenda of what we'll be covering here today: introductions, the toolbox of tomorrow, symbiotic intelligence, what's it all about, how to use AI, adoption challenges, final thoughts, and we'll bring it home with some questions. So now for some introductions. Always awkward to talk about yourself. That's why I love this handy dandy slide that does it for you. But the too long didn't read version. My name's Carl Storms, Technical Success Manager at Nuforma. Been there for a little over 5 years. I've been in the industry for a little over 25, much longer than I'd like to admit. But enough about me. Let's dive in. So I always like to start these presentations by sort of some tailored expectations, what to expect. And so in the afternoon, had a bit of a day, need to get a little pick-me-up with some caffeine, like maybe a Diet Coke, perhaps a little bit of chocolate. But everyone has their own way to get themselves up and running to finish up the day. Some great local treats here. The point is that everyone has a different reason for doing what they're doing, and using AI is no different. So for me, it all started with something called the 100 Days of AI. I saw this and I jumped in and took this challenge January 1st, 2024. And essentially what it allowed me to do was to learn a lot about AI, not AEC specifically, but just AI. In fact, I built this entire web page and all of these tools, even this little chatbot, all from what I learned there with using AI. So there's a lot of things that you can do with AI, even if you have no coding skills. This morning we talked a little bit about low code, no code, how we can use that to bring in place. AI was a big part of that. Well, today we're going to focus in on that AI part. Now, speaking of AI use cases, you can of course ask AI what's the best use case for it. Say, give me a mind map, but sometimes, as we'll find, AI doesn't always give you exactly what you would have expected. But with some work, some talking, some coaxing, you get something a little better, maybe even bring it in specific for the AECO world, and we get pretty close. If we want to see what others in the world of AI, in the general scope of AI, this is a great article from the Harvard Business Review. Let me tell you, last year, 2024 versus this year, some things have changed in the top 10. This full article is the top 100. Click the link, look at it. Let me tell you, in 2025, people are doing some weird stuff with AI. I'm not going to spoil it, but you've got to check it out. So let's hop into the toolbox of tomorrow. And in case you hadn't realized, all of the images for this presentation were, of course, created by our friends at AI. So what is that AI and the image that it created for us to depict itself? Well, according to our friends at IBM, artificial intelligence. That's what AI is. Basically, technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human intelligence and problem solve, or at least act that way. Now, AEC Acoustics, Phil Reed's conference, Practical Roundtables, which just wrapped up. I went there last year when we did a roundtable with no technology about AI. That was a little tricky. But out of that, we came with things like architectural intern. Everyone got a chuckle. Algorithm iterations, makes sense. This is my favorite, augmented intelligence. You have an assistant to help you spit out what you can't quite get from your brain out of your mouth hole. So what are types of artificial intelligence? And this is like the scientific version of it. So narrow. This is what we're in now. Machine learning, specialized in one area. Everything we can do now is narrow. With the introduction of AI agents, you will hear people start talking that we're getting close to general AI, machine intelligence, almost as smart as humans. I'm going to bet we're not there. We're a long ways from that yet. We're not as close as some people say, but you never know. And then the big scary one, the artificial superintelligence. When we've got HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the machines take over, where the machines are just generally smarter than humans. This is a long ways out. And a lot of times it's not necessarily the technology or the software. It's the technology, the computing power, the energy, all the things that would be required to make that happen. We're not there yet from a hardware state of mind. The big thing that we're doing now with this narrow intelligence is generative AI. All the things that we know and love, and many of what we're going to talk about today, are in this scenario. So text generation, image generation, video, music, speech, code, all of these things are just some of the tools that are available today to do that. But it's more than just generation of things. We also have perception, computer vision, the chatbots, the AI agents to be able to analyze things. All of these are also part of that narrow intelligence. There's a lot of things that what we can do now can do, but it's focused on a particular task. We also know and love them, or maybe not so much depending on how they answer us, but LLMs. This is what's exploded in the world of AI, that large language model. So basically, it is a model that's trained on particular data and can tell you, can research, can go to that data and give you an answer. Well, in reality, what it's really good at is predicting the next couple of characters after the characters that you've told it. But, that's nuance. It's something that we can talk to, and it can give us an answer that we understand in regular language. So these AI agents that everyone is talking about, what exactly is that? Well, an AI agent refers to a system or a program that can do something autonomously. So we can automate something on behalf of something else, whether that's you or another agent or an LLM. So it allows us to take one tool and have it ask another tool to do something. So we talked about LLMs. There's so many of them out there. Here are some of the popular ones that are out there that people use and have placed. Some of them are specific, like ChatGPT or Claude. Some of them, like allows you to access many of them and use them in place. So you can find one that works for you. I use many of them, different ones for different tasks. If you're curious of what one might say versus the other, tools like Lapophase and Verify AI allow you to talk to many LLMs at once, 3 to 6 depending on if it's free or paid. Verify AI actually allows you to talk to multiple LLMs. It also rates the response of the LLM based on your question. So really handy to sort of see different views with one prompt. And of course, we'd like to keep things private these days. So there's also many options to keep your data out of the sky, not in the internet, and to run these models, many of the ones that we see above, on these local versions on your own laptop without ever touching the interwebs. Of course, it does mean you need a laptop or a computer that can handle it. If you are using Chat RXT, which does come from the folks at NVIDIA, you do need an NVIDIA card for it to work. And you tend to usually be using a smaller model because of the storage space and computer requirements. But if nothing else about using these local ones, Ollama wins, hands down, for the best logo. Now let's circle back a little bit to those AI agents. Now AI agents, well, there are some here on the screen. It's less about what they are and more what they can do. So like Claude, where it says 3.5 and 3.7, these became big because it allowed Claude to use your computer and then a couple iterations later to use the internet. So this gives them access to do things because it can now access your computer, it can now access the internet. So it's not necessarily the agent itself, but that ability allows people to create agents. And if you're just starting from scratch, Zapier agents, Zapier, we talked about it this morning in my low code class, is a great ability to allow you to connect things together, but now you can use them to create agents, which basically means that you can have it do something like read email, but then you can have the email go through OpenAI and read the email and sort it on a scale to say, is this urgent, not urgent, or sort of urgent? So that's what an agent does. It allows you to take one thing like looking at your email and then putting it into an LLM. So it's not just a black box, although it certainly seems like it that way. The user is going to ask that agent a question. Inside the agent is an LLM, where you know what that is. That's the brains. That's where the question goes. But what makes it an agent is it now has these modules or tools that it can connect to do certain things. So when the user asks that question, the LLM says, okay, I have these 3 or 5 or 10 or 1,000 tools or modules at my disposal, which one is best for the question or task I was asked. It selects the one. It then uses that module to act on whatever the task or request was. It then processes that through the LLM and gives the response back to the user. The user is, hey, happy that we got the answer. So an agent is when an LLM and its modules or tools work together to complete a task. That's how it works. Of course, there's other AI tools out there that fall into all sorts of categories that use for a specific use case. There's so many to name, but these are some of the ones that I've used and learned through over the time that I really find beneficial. Ask CSV. You can like ChatGPT, but to an Excel file or a CSV file. Same thing with the PDF. Windsurfer is vibe coding. And it was actually just bought yesterday by OpenAI, people that make ChatGPT for $3 billion with a B dollars. So there's some money in this stuff. Goblin Tools is great. Ideogram makes great images with text. Napkin. Napkin is one of my favorite new ones. If you need to create visuals, charts, graphs, sort of things for anything, this is basically an LLM that when you ask it something, it gives you 50 different versions of a chart or a graph or a funnel diagram, and then you can change the color and the iteration. It's a great tool. We don't have time to dive into it here today, but definitely Google napkin.ai. You won't be disappointed. There is a site called There's an AI for that, and quite literally, if it exists, it's available here. So if you're not sure if there's an AI to do something, yes, there is. But if you're not sure, you can go to this website, type it in. And a lot of things show up here before they're mainstream, so you can find stuff early on, get early adopter access. It's a really cool website. But also keep in mind that there's a lot of weird things people use AI for, and all of them I'm sure have their place. But just be careful when you're Googling here and looking for AI that you can find anything here. Useful AI is a professor that puts this together. He updates it sporadically, but it's really cool about what it does for how to use an LLM, how to create images, a lot of just general AI info. The Revit Wizard by Daniel Peterson is a custom GPT. Back in the day when OpenAI first came out with these, you had to have the paid version to create one, which you still do, but now you can use them even if you don't have a paid version, so anyone can access the Revit Wizard. And so essentially, the Revit Wizard allows you to go ahead and ask it things. So this was created and trained on Revit data, Revit outcome, Revit knowledge. So it's not just general GPT or general, LLM. It's one that's been trained specifically. As you can see, it knows that you don't go to Revit City to get your Revit families. But if you do, it is smart enough to tell you to please make sure you download that in a container file first. So even Revit Wizard knows thou shalt not use Revit City. But very cool. Now, if we want to ask it, a legit question, although I think asking it about Revit City is, you can see that it gives you legit responses. It's based out of ChatGPT, so you see sometimes it doesn't know which answer is the best, so it gives you two, which is also very helpful. So you can scroll back, you can see the data it walks through telling you those ways to get those different parameter files inside of the windows. It gives you option A, option B. Again, that's not always the case, but what I really like about it is if you scroll down to the end, you'll see that it also gives you follow-up questions. There's always 3 follow-up questions to how to continue on this line of questioning. And it's one thing as if you're a Revit expert using this, but imagine if you're new to Revit and you need that help to get through. It's a great tool. Versa, recently bought by Chaos, the people that bring us Enscape, allows us to take a real-time Revit image and make it one of those AI-generated images that we all see so much, but specifically for the model that we started with. You can see that the new sample file from Revit, we choose the type of model that we want, we hit render, and just like that, we've created an image based off of that. And it's pretty good. Again, it's not perfect, but that's kind of the idea. And then we can save it as a JPEG, and we can use that, send it to the client, keep it in a library, whatever we want. You can see I have some that I created I was testing this. We can also take it a little bit further, and this is kind of cool. We can now start tweaking it. You can see I'm adjusting some sliders, I'm changing some views, and then I re-render it, and it re-renders based on those changes that I've made. And this is an older model. It's been tweaked even more since then. But what I really like is that we can also sort of edit it. So again, because of the way that AI will work and how it gives us outcomes, sometimes it's not exactly what we want. It's almost like the magic erase tool you have on your phone nowadays. You know, this area doesn't quite look right. Let's rethink this particular area. We say, hey, let's re-render that. You can see down in the corner it's created it. I click on it, that area's been reimagined. So again, it's not ideal, but for real quick iterations, it does a really good job to give you an idea of what's there and what you can do. And it's a way to iterate and to sort of get the juices flowing. There's also something called coding. And so this gives you the ability to use AI to help with local codes. Everyone's favorite part of working in the architectural industry is reviewing all of those codes. So basically what this does is it allows you to select, it started here in Canada, select the code that you want, bring it in place. You can add your own codes in there for different areas. And then basically it allows you to ask questions of the code. And again, it's been trained on many, many different building codes, so it responds and answers based as being like a building code expert. But it's more than just simply prompting. It's specifically built for this. So again, a great tool, AEC specific. We also have the AEC AI Hub, another website that has this page with, what does it say here, 1,500 tools. Again, tools. They're not specific AI, they're AI, the low code, things that are AI adjacent, AECO adjacent, but it's a list that's always growing. You can always find some really cool resources there for our industry. So now if we take a look at symbiotic intelligence, the idea that for AI to be of a real benefit to us, we have to work together. So to get the best out of it, it has to be a symbiotic relationship. Man and machine, human and machine, we work together like the pretty picture tells us. But it's not just going to do the work for us, we have to work alongside it. And for this, one of the things that I took away from my 100 Days of AI that I always bring back and tell people is the AI sandwich. So the idea here is that there's a 3-step process. We've got the bread, that top piece of bread. That's the idea. You as the human come up with that. Why did I talk or interact with the AI? Then you've got the content. This is the 80% of the battle. This is what AI is good at, the filler. We let it do that. And then the bottom, that final piece of bread, the bottom is the refinement. That's you reviewing. This is very important, that you're reviewing that content that came from the AI. You make sure that's right, that they got what you wanted, and that when you put it all together, you become a team and you get exactly what you want from that AI sandwich. Now, when we interact with AI, there's a couple ways we can do it, at least specifically with LLMs, and that's prompts. These are specific instructions or input for an LLM for a single interaction. Frameworks, these are more like a structured system or strategy. They're usually done for more complex questions or tasks. So some examples of prompts. This is one I use all the time. Spelling, grammar, and flow. I can't spell my own name if I didn't know it. So this is simple. Can you review content type, email, LinkedIn, whatever it might be, for spelling, grammar, and flow, paste content. Here's an example of what we're going to show here, and we paste it into, in this case, ChatGPT. What I like about this is it doesn't change what you're doing. It just tweaks what you're saying. So it's not the AI giving you an output. It's just making sure your content is properly done. Now, of course, it loves the M dashes. I'm not a fan, so I say, hey, can you remove that? Sure, no problem. It takes it out. Now I've got that perfectly worded email that I can now send. The reverse prompt. This one's especially for those Midjourney fans, ones that are doing images. Sometimes you see an image that you'd like, but you don't know how they prompted for that. Well, you just ask the AI to tell you. So describe this image. Describe this image. Well, it gives me a description. I then copy and paste that description, that prompt, in whatever image creating tool I want, and it recreates it. Pretty similar. Not exactly the same, but in the same vein. We can do the same thing with Revit. That's that picture of that model from Revit. Describe this. It describes it. And then I pasted in a different one, and it gives me a pretty good outcome. It's not exactly the same, but you get what it's heading for. So I would have never known to use that particular description to give me this image. The mega prompt, as the words say, it's a lot of stuff. You're just very descriptive with what you want the LLM to do. So here's my mega prompt. We're going to do some professional improvement. And there we go. You can see that this is Le Chat by Minstrel. Great, great tool. It's highly overrated or overlooked. It's very good, but it's overlooked, is what I'm trying to say. But it's great. It does good for coding as well. But what I really liked is it asked me a question. You know, I said, this is okay. Well, for me to help you, give me this information. This is another value thing from prompting. Now, if we move into frameworks, a lot of them are acronyms because, you know, role, task, formula, format, pretty simple. What are the roles? What do I need you to do? What is the outcome? Here we go. I got a new hire. I'm a BIM manager. Need a BIM specialist. It's going to go on LinkedIn. Go for it. So here it is. ChatGPT gives me this nice flowery review. I'm pretty sure I've seen some of these copied and pasted on LinkedIn for jobs for hire. But the idea is that it does a pretty good job. You want to review it. You want to make sure it applies to your company standards. But it very quickly got what I wanted from that one framework prompt. Prepped, so prompt, role, explicit instructions, and parameters. So this is when you're getting deep into the weeds with something very specific, very complex. So in this case, a site safety plan. There's so much data I had to have 2 slides. But the parameters, this is the gold in this. You tell it specifically what you want. There's a lot of ISO information here. I want to get very specific. Keep it local. We're talking about Missouri here. Yeah, little tip. The cat, and then we go into Gemini. A little bit old. We're on, I think, 2.5 now. But as you can see, it did a really good job breaking it out, filling in the data, setting it up as if you would do a report. And there's a lot of intelligence here. Again, remember to review. But what I really like about this as we're going through, and we've got all this data, is that it reminds you that this is something that needs to be reviewed. You need to review this and update it regularly. It even tells you that in bold so that you understand that. Again, don't just take the AI's word for it. Rise, again, similar role, input, steps, example. This time how we're going to bring AI to the site. We're getting similar. All these prompts, prompt engineering is a buzzword now. I like how it sort of gives me timelines for how we're going to do things here. It breaks it down into little steps. You're going to find your own flow, their own way that you want to work with these prompts. And again, if you go to the website for the resources, all of these prompts are broken down inside of there. But what I've found now, even with those other prompts, is we can get a little bit easier. The AIs or the LLMs are getting smarter. Some of them you can actually talk to now through the speaker icon. So you can have it conversational or answer leveling. So general inquiry, get more specific, give me an expert level breakdown. So hey, LLM, fill out my topic. An example. And this time we're going to use Copilot. Let's maximize your depth of the response. I've got a firm with 13 designers. We want to use generative design. How can we do that? The nice thing about this, and this is a paid version we use the Office, I've pointed to that view prompts because you can actually save your prompts to reuse here. That's handy. But as you can see, it's going through, it's breaking that, it's giving me all this information, and it's breaking it down. Because it's the paid version, it also, I know a lot of them can access the internet now, but it gives us the citations of where it got it from, basic answer, straightforward answer, the expert level breakdown. So again, it gives you that, and it again nicely gives you all that. And because it's the paid version, it also keeps it in my works environment. This is the one that I use 9 out of 10 times now. The perfect prompting framework. Work smarter, not harder, they say. So ask the LLM to tell you the prompt that it wants. So basically, you just ask it exactly what you say here. All you have to do is fill in the goal and objective. So an example here, I want you to create a landing page for a modern architecture firm that specializes in hospitals, airports, and data centers here in North America. So in this case, I asked Claude. Again, I love Claude, especially if you're doing coding. So I ask it the question, the prompt. What you have to remember here is this is a two-parter. So now that it's given me the prompt, I copy and paste that prompt and I put it into another session. In this case, also Claude, because I knew it's going to give me some code. So now it takes that prompt that it created, it actions it, breaks it down for me, but because it's Claude, and Claude is really good at doing code, it also created the website for me. And you can see this is what we call an artifact inside of Claude. I can now preview the basic framework for this website that I asked it to do. I can also hit on the little code button here, and I can see all the code that it used to create it. So I can do that. I can even hit the publish button and publish it as an artifact. In this case, I'd probably want to download it and tweak it to fill in that information. But it's a really good starting page for a landing page that I didn't have to know anything about. So now that we've got past the prompting, how are we going to use AI? Now remember back to the beginning when we talked about tailored expectations. This is how I've used it in some simple cases. Yours may be different. So to automate, I have a bunch of YouTube podcasts and I want to get stats. How much are they listened to, download, all that sort of stuff. And I didn't know how to do that. So I asked AI. And so it gave me a Python script so that I had the ability to pull some data. So this is the end result. I have everything inside of Power BI. After I ran that little script, that means my data is updated. I can go in here and refresh the data. So it's pulling from my podcast website, but it's also pulling from YouTube and from YouTube Shorts. And it pulls all that information inside here and updates the data. Pretty slick. But the behind the scenes is what happened to make that work. And you can see there's a wgh YouTube data.py. That's the Python script. It's a very simple Python script that I turn into a batch executable. But I'm not a Python person. So I asked, in this case, ChatGPT. Now this is an ongoing conversation. So it would give me a script that wouldn't work. I would tweak it. It would give me something else. I would ask it to do something else. It would need to create something. I need to clarify. It was really like having a conversation with a coder. The problem with doing this is that at a certain level, even if you're paying for ChatGPT or whatever it is, it starts to sort of forget the beginning of the conversation. So when it gets to a certain stage, it's just not going to be any good to you anymore. But in this case, there was enough information. I got enough of it done. It even walked me through setting up my own API with YouTube to get what I needed to work my way through. And so we were able to do that. So keep in mind, there was a lot that went into that, but the result is something that I can use every week. I just click a button and I get it. I also like to consolidate things. So in this case, it's something simple and probably silly, but when I'm at my desk at home, I have my laptop and I have two monitors, and when I'm presenting demos, which I do several times a day, I don't want to show the taskbar, so I turn it off. And if you worked in Windows 11, you know that there's a bit of a process. It's not the end of the world. It's a few clicks, and it turns off the taskbar on the other windows. And then when you're done, because I like to see the taskbar when I'm working, I turn it back on. It's not the end of the world, but it does take some time. So I wanted to automate that task. So I asked Claude. Uploaded a couple pictures of the taskbar on and off. I said, can you write a little script to make this automated? He says, sure. Here's a little PowerShell script you can run. But by the way, there's going to be a brief moment of blackness because it has to restart Explorer. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what that means, but let's give it a run. So I did. Oh, there's the blackness that it's talking about. So it restarts it. You can see that the taskbar is gone. I click it again. Brief moment of blackness. And then it comes back. So it does what I asked it to do. Not ideal. I'm not sure it's any better than the other method. So let's go back to the drawing board. That's great. You told me that they would have this brief moment of blackness. Is there a better way of doing it? Oh yeah, I know a way where I can do it without that. In my head, I'm thinking, why didn't you just tell me that? But I also have a Steam Deck, and I thought it'd be great, or a Stream Deck. I thought it'd be great to do it with that. So it answers both of those questions. So I update this new script. Boom. Done. Click the script again. Boom. It's back. Perfect. I use this 7 or 8 times a day. And it told me how I could add it to my Steam Deck. So now I have a Steam Deck that I use for my Teams meetings. I click the taskbar 2 button, it goes away. I can turn on my mic, turn off my mic, turn on my video, turn off my video, all of that right from my Steam Deck. Very helpful. AI did that for me. Summarize. If you haven't used or you're not using Notebook LM, shame on you. So this is a Google tool that's really meant to be a tool that's used for studying. So this is a 90-minute video on IFC 5. I go there, I copy the YouTube URL, I paste it into this Notebook LM. Anybody that has Google can use this for free. Essentially what it's doing here is it's writing a transcript of that entire 90-minute video. I now have the ability to talk to the video, and the video only is essentially an LLM. So here I go, I ask it a question, and the source is just that YouTube video. And boom, it gives me the answer. And you can see it cites where it got it inside of that. But it also allows me to do other things like create a study guide. And again, remember this is meant for studying, so it's, things you should study about, IFCs. I can create a brief timeline, so the timeline of in this case, the video of IFCs. Again, very detail oriented, again, meant for studying. FAQs and timelines are also able to be created. The thing is that you can bring your own data into this. So while we're talking specifically about a video about IFC 5, you could bring anything into this. What it got famous for and what everyone knows it for now is that it can actually turn anything. In this case, it's a YouTube video, but it can be anything. I turned a blog post into a podcast. And no matter what it is, it turns it into about a 15-minute podcast. It takes about 5 minutes. I cut that out for the sake of time. But that's what people really know it for. But you can see you can also add in other things. So I added the Building Smart International IFC website. And so now when I ask a question, it's not only reviewing that video from YouTube, it's also reviewing that website. And you can see, again, anytime you click on one of those citations, it takes you to that moment in time from the website of the video, what have you. Now, because everyone knows it for the podcast, I'm going to give you just
all right, so get ready, because today we're diving deep into the future of how we handle building information.
Ooh, sounds intense.
It is. We're talking about IFC 5.
Okay, the latest version of industry foundation classes, right?
Right, and it has the potential to really shake things up,
How so?
Well, you gave me this awesome YouTube video from Building Smart International, and they're proposing some pretty radical changes.
I am really curious to hear your take on it.
Well, first of all, they're moving away from those massive IFC files that we all know and sometimes love.
Oh, I see. Yeah, those can be a bit...
So you get the idea. But it's a really cool tool that you can do that. And you can imagine taking a 90-minute video, breaking it down to a fun NPR type back and forth. It's always two people in the podcast. It's really helpful. They've also improved that now so you can sort of tweak how the podcast runs, or you can make it interactive so people can ask questions. You can have call-ins. That's still in beta, but they're improving that feature. We can also use AI locally. So we talked about this. There's many that I showed on this particular one, GPT for All. You download, you install it on, you run it locally. It's not touching the internet at all. So basically you download it, you start chatting. The first thing you need to do is install a model. So you have to download it. This is Pi 3. They're up to Pi 4 now. This is just a simple, small model from Microsoft. When you're running it locally, especially on a laptop, you're going to want to use small models. And for simple things, it's easy. What you do give up a little bit for is a little bit of speed, especially if you ask difficult questions. But again, same. It's the same as using any of the ones online. You can download any of the models. Well, I guess any ones they give you access to. There are some ones, but like, for example, everyone was going crazy for DeepSeek, but nobody wanted to give their information over the internet. Well, you can download and run it locally. But the real cool thing is you can also upload, or I guess it's your laptop, access files locally. So in this case, I'm asking it a question of my local file. So I'm going to ask it a design question based on my ABC design docs. And so when I ask it this question, it's referencing only those 7 PDF files or whatever those files are that have my thing. And from this session to the next session, if I upload 3 files in there, when I ask it to do that, it will go through, it will process those files, and then it will run it off of it. You can see it also gives me sources. So it allows you not only to run locally, but to run local content. Running local is very cool, but you do have to have the machine and a little bit of more patience. Now, if you were at my session earlier today, you'll know what stacked for the win means. But one of the things I did during that 100 Days of AI is I worked on this make-believe project called Greenwood, which essentially what I did was I made this landing page for this community. But since then, what I've done is it's grown and expanded to be sort of my playground. And so this is the actual live landing page. It's got the header, it's got some upcoming events, but the basis is that it has this local business directory, but it also has a volunteer. Both of those, one's run off Google Sheets and one's run off Google Forms. But the cool thing is, and I didn't show this morning, is that I also added this widget from BuildShip. Very cool. And all this is doing is reading the information from the Google Sheets. So I like pizza. Is there a place? Well, it knows that Sam's is looking for volunteers, and it pulls all the information from that Google Sheet. My wife likes animals. Is there anything to do with animals? Well, she types it in, she or me, a very slow typer. But we go ahead and hit enter, and again, it's going to review that up-to-date Google Sheets and give the answer based off of that. So you can imagine that if you're starting out, you don't have a really very tech-savvy, community center makes sense. All this can be done through Google Sheets. Now, there is a little bit more on the back end, but all of it is accessible. I made that page and stored it on Google Pages using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but all done through AI. All the images came from DALL-E and Microsoft Designer, Google Forms. How to embed that was a bit more trickier than I thought it would be, but AI walked me through it. Using Google Sheets, again, AI, how did I get that in there? I get a Slack message every time somebody fills out one of those Google Forms, and I use that with Make. SheetsDB is a way that I can put real-time Google Sheets information on a website, and it's live. And then Zapier, every time somebody fills in that sheet, I get a Gmail telling me that. That's an automation through Zapier. And that last little bit using that BuildShip. Super simple, low-code automation to put that in place. All of that's run. None of that costs me a dime. So some tips and tricks for working with your AI. Customize your chat. The example I have here is you can customize inside of ChatGPT. You can do this in the free. You get more when you're in the paid, obviously. But you tell it how you want it to be reacted to, how it wants to sound like you. You want your outputs to sound more human. This is some great context for doing that, whether you use this to rewrite a prompt or you're just using it as a way so that when you're thinking, you add this into your prompts and work your way through. You can also use many of those humanizers that are out there. There was one in my LLM page, the AI humanizer. There's also one called Zero GPT. Now, if you're going to be doing some coding, vibe coding if it were, there are some challenges for that. And I had a lot of fun working with AI to do some coding, but it does present some challenges. So there are usage limits, meaning that whether it's paid or even whether it's free or paid, at some point you reach the limit of what you can do and you have to wait 24 hours before you can get more requests, more questions. That's annoying. AI forgets things. Again, at a certain page like we were talking about, or a certain part, it sort of forgets where the starting line is. And so you always want to be able to start at a certain information. And when you get to that, you want to take what you've learned, put it into a bite-sized chunk, and start again in a new chapter. So I've learned from this conversation with AI, and I break that down to a smaller part, and then I start again. It's not doing what you think, and this happens a lot. So while you're having a conversation with it, millions of other people are having a conversation with it, and this is the typical output, but it's not the output you want, and you get frustrated. Repeating coding errors, again, same thing. That's not what I want. And this gets really hard if you don't know that it's not what you want. If you're not a coder, this can cause some problems. Oh, the spaghetti takes me back to my Dynamo days. Unoptimized code. This is a real problem. And this is, when people say, oh, a no coder can use AI and be running a business well, it's not sustainable. and then explicit prompting, meaning that you want to be very specific. You want to always be having it to optimize the code as you go along, check for errors, keep it in small chunks so that you can use it again. You really want to be succinct with this when you're using AI for coding. I've heard people say that 300 lines is kind of where you want to be with that coding. I don't know if that's true, but it seems to be in that range. Prompting efficiency, how you want to do that. We saw those prompts. There's also this cool tool. It's a free student exercise, I think, LLM prompts, where you can fill out this. You can also save your own template. So if you're using a lot, you can go in here, fill it in, copy and paste it over and over again. Golden Hour is an actual Claude artifact, so somebody made it on Claude and published it to the world. But it's meant to give you good prompts for Midjourney and similar image creating prompts. If you're testing stuff, you don't want to use real data. If you haven't used Mockaroo.com, I highly recommend it. It basically allows you to go in and create data. It also has an AI interface. So you can choose the data that you want and you get real data that's not real. Real looking data, I guess, is a better way. So when you're testing it, it works properly, but it's nobody's actual data or emails or any of that. So how do we get people to adopt? Well, it's not a new challenge. No buy-in. New tool, same story. We've all been there. Remember trying to get people to use Revit 15, 20 years ago? AI is just like everything else. You need to have a plan, but it seems different, so sometimes we wing it. We shouldn't. No training. Same thing. Well, I don't need to train him. AI can train him. Just let AI do it. But that's not the right way to do it either. Like everything else, to get the best out of it for you and your company, you need to make sure that you have proper protocol in place. It's not a quick fix. It's just another tool in your toolbox, like that cute little robot there. You want to make sure that you understand what's going on and how it's being used. But it's not a problem. You can prepare for this. You start small. You have champions that are going to use it the way that you want to use it and push to the boundaries, but without getting in trouble. Pick workflows where you're going to benefit from adding AI. Don't just throw AI everywhere. Use it for small things where automation is going to be a big benefit. Have standards and guidelines. I know this is the tough part because it's new, but just general things. Don't put clients' data in the web. That should be your first one. And know what happens to your data once it's in the AI. So you want to make sure that you have a plan for success. So some final thoughts as we bring it home. AI capabilities and limitations, it's still a work in progress. This is one of those things that kind of makes me chuckle. But the idea is that really AI can get you like 80% of the way. But you have to be willing to do that last 20% of the work, because that last 20%, trying to get AI to do it like this image shows, you're going to be banging your head against the wall because it's not meant to do that. It's to get you there, but then you have to finish it. Remember the AI sandwich. The golden rule for prompting. I love this one too. Show that prompt to a colleague, ideally that doesn't know anything about what you're asking, and see how it follows the instruction. If your colleague can do it, AI might be able to do it, and the same. If your colleague can't do it, AI is probably going to be confused too. Try before you buy. Lots of free options out there, but remember, if the tool or platform is free, then you, or your data in this case, is really the product. Be aware of what you're giving away. And a lot of times you're fine with that, but just know that you're doing it. And of course, our friends from the shoe company would say, just do it. No better time than the present to go ahead and start. But remember to check. Now, did you count how many arms there are? Oh, there's a mystery arm there. It doesn't always get it right. All right. Any questions? You can go ahead and scan the QR code there to get the data. You can also find the information here. But thank you very much for your time today.